The Vatican is not telling us the truth. They won't admit who the bones in St. Paul's crypt really belong to, and that's only the beginning of their lies. Stay tuned to see how deep the Vatican's secrets are buried. Who is buried under the Basilica? For 2,000 years, a mysterious coffin lay sealed underneath one of the holiest buildings in Rome. When the coffin was finally opened, all hell broke loose. Prepare yourself for a wild ride through history. It all starts at the Papal Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, a church so fancy it has more names than a European royal. You might be wondering about the outside the walls part, since that's super weird to tack onto the name of a basilica. It gets its name from being literally outside the ancient city walls of Rome. Maybe you were hoping for something more dramatic, but that's it. This basilica is part of the exclusive club of Rome's 4 major papal basilicas, rubbing elbows with St. Peter's, St. John Lateran, and St. Mary Major. It's also one of the 7 pilgrim churches of Rome, along with St. Sebastian outside the walls. Romans have a weird thing about walls. Don't ask. Now I have to take you to the 4th century AD, when Emperor Constantine, the guy famous for legalizing Christianity, decided to build a church over the burial site of Paul of Tarsus. Apparently, Paul's followers had already set up a makeshift memorial for him. Constantine wanted to add to the memorial, making it a little more glamorous. Fast forward to the year 386, and Emperor Theodosius I went full HGTV. He upgraded the whole thing, added a nave, 4 aisles, and a transept because, go big or go home. Pope Innocent I consecrated the building around 402, and by the 5th century, this place was even larger than old St. Peter's Basilica. Take that, Peter. Christian poet Prudentius saw it and was so impressed he wrote about it, which was like the 5th century version of leaving a 5-star review. If Prudentius liked your stuff, you could guarantee more visitors. Now let's get to the body and the coffin. Legend has it that Paul of Tarsus, also known as Paul the Apostle, also known as Jesus' BFF, was buried 2 miles from where he was executed, in a plot owned by a Christian woman named Lucina. Over time, a fancy memorial was built in his honor over the top of his grave. Then, when Constantine built his basilica, Paul's body was dug up and placed inside a sarcophagus, except for his head, which according to tradition was taken elsewhere. Again, don't ask. His tombstone, now in the crypt, is inscribed with Paulo Apostolo Mart, which roughly translates to Paul the Apostle and Martyr. For 1600 years, it was assumed Paul's real body lay in the sarcophagus. Now we have to jump forward in time to 2006. Vatican archaeologists got their Indiana Jones hats on and confirmed that there was in fact a white marble sarcophagus under the altar of the basilica. But they didn't remove it. They didn't even open it. Messing with the coffin of one of Jesus' disciples is a no-go move. At least it was for a bit. Curiosity did kill the cat after all. In 2009, Pope Benedict XVI was like, to heck with it, open the thing. So the coffin was opened. The bones inside were radiocarbon dated and confirmed to be from the 1st century AD, the time Paul of Tarsus lived, hung with Christ, and then died a martyr. It was officially confirmed that the bones belonged to a real disciple of Jesus Christ. Now that is a freaking bombshell. It's like finding the grave of Judas and then confirming his bones are in it. But hold on a second before you start celebrating. The Pope merely said the tests seem to conclude that the bones are Paul's. They haven't 100% confirmed it. The discovery hasn't been reviewed by mainstream scientists, only by Vatican scientists. And do you really trust the Vatican to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Are these Paul's bones or just some random schmuck's bones? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can pay to avoid purgatory. The Vatican is always looking for new ways to keep up with the times. After all, the place is nearly 2,000 years old. But the latest divine deal is too crazy to believe. I know they want to get through to the youth of the world, but is paying to avoid a hellish nightmare in the realm of purgatory the way to go? That's right, everyone. You can get time off purgatory like time off a jail sentence for good behavior in one easy step. Simply follow Pope Francis on Twitter. Your road to salvation now runs through your social media feed. For those unfamiliar with the idea of paying for salvation, it's quite an old concept, one known as an indulgence. Indulgence is a kind of like the Catholic equivalent of a get-out-of-jail-free card. In the old days, people had to do actual work like climbing sacred stairs on their knees to shave some time off their post-life waiting room sentence. But in the Middle Ages, some enterprising churchmen got a little too entrepreneurial. They started selling indulgences for cash, which led to a major disaster. See Martin Luther, Protestant Reformation, and that whole debacle. All these years later, and apparently God is still taking time off people's unpleasant afterlife experiences. But not for cash. Now it's for likes and follows. Instead of handing over gold coins, you just need to follow Pope Francis on Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it. Or you can engage with the Vatican's social media pages. It's like McDonald's forcing you to get an app to get lower prices. Follow the church and your soul is saved. However, before you start spamming amen in the comments section, a senior Vatican official has a reminder. This isn't a cosmic vending machine where you pop in a retweet and out comes salvation. You can't obtain indulgences like getting a coffee from a vending machine, said Archbishop Claudio Maria Celli, the Vatican's head of social communication. Mindlessly liking tweets won't earn you points with the big guy upstairs. The Vatican says you still have to believe and practice your faith. You have to be engaged both with your eyes and your soul. The Vatican says you have to follow events live and pay attention, otherwise no dinner. Sorry, I mean no salvation. The bottom line is you can't rack up heaven points while arguing about pineapple on pizza in the comments section. To qualify, you also need to have confessed your sins beforehand, and you must feel sorry for them. As tedious as it is, devotion and genuine faith are still required. But if you have faith and an internet connection, no worries. Your time at purgatory will be cut short thanks to the Pope's social media shorts. Wow, what an age we live in. And now for a quick break. But first I wanted to give a shout out and big thank you to Alvaro Corral and Wayne McMaster for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. The Vatican's Secret Time Machine. Time travel is that one thing that would be so great to have access to, but just feels impossible. Who wouldn't want to go back and fix that embarrassing middle school haircut or invest in Bitcoin before it took off? What would you do with a time machine? For one Italian priest, the answer to that question is simple. He would go back in time and take a photograph of Jesus Christ being crucified. And that's exactly what the priest did using the Vatican's own time machine known as the chronovisor. I hope you have some popcorn because this one is a doozy. Our story begins with Marcello Pellegrino Ernetti, a respected Catholic priest, a Gregorian chant expert and an exorcist from Venice. Born in 1925, Ernetti devoted his life to Christianity, but he also had some, shall we say, creative hobbies. Hobbies like claiming he was part of a secret team of scientists who built a time-traveling machine. Ernetti announced that this machine allowed him to witness historical events, including the crucifixion of Christ. And because just saying it wasn't enough, he conveniently presented a photograph of Jesus on the cross as proof. So where's that photo now? I wish I could tell you. The Vatican, unsurprisingly, has never confirmed or denied the story of Ernetti. They've never shown the photo to anyone or admitted it exists. But I can tell you for sure that Ernetti was a real priest. He said with his own real vocal cords that the chronovisor was developed by a top-secret team of scientists, and the device supposedly lets users see through time. There's the fine print. See through time, not physically travel through time. The chronovisor is like the world's weirdest security camera. Naturally, this claim set off an explosion of debates. Some people believed the Vatican had a powerful tool hidden away, worried that if it fell into the wrong hands, history itself could be manipulated. Others pointed out that time travel is currently impossible and that Ernetti's claims were a bit much. Where does the Vatican stash their time machine? Oh, you know, locked away in a basement somewhere next to the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. The truth is, no one knows if the chronovisor is real or nothing but a hoax. Either way, the story refuses to die. Maybe it's because we all want to believe time travel is possible. Or maybe it's because a secret Vatican time machine is just too wild of a concept to let go. If you had 10 minutes alone with the chronovisor, what part of the past would you wish to witness? Let me know in the comments. Moses' altar, proof of the Bible? Do you know what Moses did after he went up on Mount Sinai to have a little chat with God? He embarked upon his own little construction project, an adorable DIY altar, and now archaeologists think they found it, possibly proving once and for all that the story of Moses is fact, not fable. According to Exodus 20 and 24, Moses sets up an altar at the foot of the mountain, following divine building codes given to him by God. The altar had no steps, no chiseled stones, and no cut corners, just good old-fashioned uncut rock stacked into a humble shrine. Moses also set up 12 pillars to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Once the altar was done, Moses got the sacrifices rolling. People often forget how bloodthirsty the Old Testament God was. Moses splattered animal blood all over the altar, all over the ground, and all over the Israelites. It was like being front row at a Gallagher show, but grosser. This is all what the Bible tells us, but what about what's physically there? Amazingly, there's a real altar structure at the foot of Jabal Makla, which is believed to be the mountain where Moses communed with God. This altar is L-shaped, has no steps, and is made of uncut stones. Check, check, and check. Everything matches the description in the Bible. There's even a pit with layers of ash and organic material in it. Either it's an old barbecue pit or the place where the Israelites performed rituals in the name of God. The Saudi government did some digging here and found ash, animal bones, and charcoal at the site, but they refused to admit the link between the discoveries and the Bible. Instead, they blamed the remains on ancient Nabatean workers who mined marble nearby. And here's where things get really exciting. Next to the altar are perfectly circular stones about 23 inches in diameter, lined up in a formation that just so happens to resemble the 12 pillars described in Exodus 24. That's a lot of coincidence packed into one desert ruin. Jim and Penny Caldwell, who explored the site in the 1990s, believe the pillars represent the 12 lost tribes of Israel and were the very ones erected by Moses. The evidence at Jabal Makla is compelling. You've got a structure matching the biblical description of Moses' altar, remains of animal sacrifices, and 12 mysterious pillars. Do you believe deep down in your heart that we are looking at the remnants of Moses' altar, and therefore proof that the Bible's stories are true? Or is this just another example of the church desperate to find anything that will convince people the Bible is to be trusted? The popes who didn't make it. Being the Pope might seem like a cushy gig. Golden thrones, fancy robes, and a direct hotline to the guy upstairs. But history shows that sitting on the papal throne has often been more hazardous than handling unstable explosives. Out of the 266 popes, at least 42 met unnatural ends. Some were martyred, some were assassinated, a few got a little too frisky for their own good, and one fell off a mule. The first pope is said to be Saint Peter. Tradition tells us he didn't exactly retire in luxury. According to legend, Peter was crucified upside down around 64 AD because he felt unworthy to die the same way as Jesus. Whether that was his actual request or just a dark Roman prank, we'll never know. Clement I, another early pope, managed to upset the Romans so much that he got an anchor tied around his neck and was tossed into the Black Sea. Why settle for a normal execution when you can have nautical drama? It was worse than walking the plank. Then there was Pope Stephen I, who was beheaded while celebrating Mass. Emperor Valerian's soldiers stormed in, grabbed the guy, and that was the end of Stephen. By the time the Middle Ages rolled around, the job of Pope had become the same as being a mafia boss. Families fought over the title, popes were poisoned, and if you didn't watch your back, you might just get bludgeoned to death. Pope John VIII, who ruled from 872 to 882, had a particularly rough exit. Poisoned by his own priest, he survived just long enough for his assassin to finish the job with a hammer. Then there was Pope Formosus from 891 to 896, who, to be fair, technically wasn't murdered. That being said, what happened to him is so bizarre, it deserves a mention. After his death, his enemies had his corpse dug up, dressed in papal robes, and put on trial. Formosus' corpse was found guilty, had 3 fingers chopped off, was buried, dug up again, and then tossed into the Tiber River. Didn't you know medieval grudges were next level? The Catholic Church officially banned priests from having sex in 1139, but that didn't stop them. It only made priests sneakier, slimier, and more debauched than ever. A perfect example is Pope Sixtus IV, who was quite a busy man from 1471 to 1484. He fathered at least 6 illegitimate children, one of whom was possibly with his own sister. If that's not a yikes moment, I don't think I know what is. Pope Alexander VI was also a slimeball between 1492 and 1503. He turned the Vatican into an after-hours club, throwing wild parties, keeping mistresses, and allegedly enjoying the company of male prostitutes. But nobody outdid John XII from 955 to 964. John was so dedicated to extracurricular activities that he turned the papal palace into a brothel. His death came in the form of a stroke which he suffered right in the middle of bedroom activities with a nobleman's wife. Some say her husband threw him out a window, and honestly, either version seems fitting. Then there were the popes who died from outrageous accidents, like John the 21st in 1277. John was deep into his medical studies when the entire ceiling of his palace collapsed on him. A 6-day battle between John and gravity ensued. Gravity won. Pope Urban VI died falling off his mule in 1389. It was not the dignified exit he probably hoped for. While today's popes enjoy a slightly safer existence, history shows that wearing the papal crown used to be a very dangerous game. Whether it was murder, scandal, or some really bad luck, the job of Pope came with a life expectancy worse than a goldfish. The Church's orphans. What the Church did to Canadian children in the 1950s might be one of their worst crimes. It's a dark chapter in Christian history, Canadian history, and human history as a whole. Be warned, you might never trust another priest again. Being a kid in an orphanage sucks as it is, but things get so much worse when you're branded mentally defective and locked away in a psychiatric hospital, all because someone wanted a bigger government check. It sounds like a twisted episode of My Worst Roommate, but it's not. This was the grim reality for thousands of children in Quebec between 1935 and 1964, a scandal now known as the Duplessis orphans tragedy. To understand how anyone got away with this, you just need to follow the money. In 1948, Canada's federal government rolled out subsidies for provincial health services. Premier Maurice Duplessis, who was not a fan of federal involvement in Quebec affairs, favored religious-run institutions over government-run programs. At the time, orphanages received a measly 70 cents per day per child, while psychiatric hospitals were raking in $2.25 per patient. So what did some church-run institutions do? Simple. They took perfectly healthy orphans, slapped a fake mental illness diagnosis on them, and cashed in on the higher government subsidy. For the unlucky children caught in this scheme, life was bleak. The institutions, mostly run by Catholic congregations, were strict, cruel, and abusive. Some children endured harsh discipline, neglect, and unspeakable violence. To make things worse, those who were falsely diagnosed as intellectually disabled were drugged, subjected to electroshock therapy, and denied proper education. Many were left utterly unprepared for life outside the walls of these facilities, leading to lifelong struggles with employment, relationships, and mental health. I won't get into the gritty details because it's downright inhuman and disturbing, but I think you get the gist. And it was all because the church wanted an extra $1.50. For decades, the Duplessis orphans' suffering remained a buried secret. Then in the 1960s, whistleblowers and former patients started pulling back the curtain. Legal action began in 1992, but getting justice wasn't easy. Orphans who tried to file a class action lawsuit in 1993 saw their case dismissed due to legal technicalities and lack of financial backing. Meanwhile, police investigations stalled, and many of the accused had either passed away or denied wrongdoing. By the late 1990s, public outcry finally pushed the Quebec government to act. In 1999, Premier Lucien Bouchard issued a public apology and set up a $3 million assistance fund. But compensation remained a sticking point. Orphans initially received only a $10,000 lump sum plus $1,000 per year of confinement, capped at $25,000. For years of stolen childhoods and suffering, it wasn't exactly a jackpot. Despite continued efforts, real accountability remained elusive. In 2018, some orphans filed a class action suit demanding $875,000 each in damages. The Superior Court of Quebec rejected it. Other lawsuits followed in 2018 and 2020, but success has been limited. In total, over 6,500 orphans have applied for financial assistance, with more than $26 million in compensation distributed distributed. While it's something, it hardly erases decades of suffering. And maybe the worst of all is that no one in the church will admit wrongdoing. While the Quebec government issued a formal apology, the Catholic Church has largely refused to do the same. In 2025, do you think it's time for the church to take accountability for its actions? The Remnant Fellowship Church. Okay, this isn't about the Vatican, but it's so wild I need to tell you about it. Every now and again, a new branch of the church grows like a tumor, and it's almost always terrible. Have you heard of the Remnant Fellowship, the Tennessee-based religious group that took Pray the Weight away to terrifying extremes? If no, hold on to your seat because this is crazy. The HBO docu-series The Way Down, God, Greed and the Cult of Gwen Shamblin recently peeled back the pastel-colored curtain on this bizarre and disturbing world. Gwen Shamblin, a woman with gravity-defying hair and a self-proclaimed hotline to God, convinced her followers that dieting was a divine commandment. The results were not good. Gwen Shamblin Lara wasn't your average diet guru. A trained dietitian, she struck gold in the 1980s with the Way Down Workshop, a Bible-based weight loss program that combined intuitive eating with extreme religious guilt. Her pitch was to stop worshipping food and start worshipping God. Who knew you could starve yourself into righteousness? By the early 2000s, she had sold millions of books, appeared on Larry King Live, The Tyra Banks Show, and even landed a New Yorker profile. But what started as a diet program soon morphed into something much more sinister. Shamblin broke from her evangelical roots and founded Remnant Fellowship. Weight Watchers meets The Handmaid's Tale, but with more pastel dresses and extreme control over every aspect of her followers' lives. On the surface, Remnant Fellowship looked like a wholesome, tight-knit community of devout Christians dedicated to spiritual weight loss. But once inside, members found themselves trapped in a high-control environment where Shamblin dictated their finances, marriages, parenting, and even their social media presence. Ex-members recall being threatened with losing custody of their children if they left, having every aspect of their personal lives monitored, and being pressured to maintain an image of perfect, bubbly happiness. You might think I'm being dramatic, but in 2003, 8-year-old Joseph Smith was murdered. His parents, devout Remnant Fellowship members, were convicted of beating him to death. They were following Shamblin's teachings on strict physical discipline. Other members admitted they too were taught to beat their children with glue sticks and deny them food as punishment, all under the guise of biblical obedience. Despite overwhelming evidence, Shamblin and Remnant Fellowship stood by the Smiths, portraying them as innocent victims. In classic cult fashion, anyone who dared question the church's methods was labeled a heretic. Just as the Way Down docuseries was wrapping up production, reality served up a tragic twist. On May 29, 2021, Gwen Shamblin Lara, her husband Joe Lara, and several other church leaders died in a plane crash outside Smyrna, Tennessee. Even after her death, the show goes on. The day after the crash, Shamblin's daughter Elizabeth Shamblin Hannah took the stage in a long black dress, hands raised to the heavens, vowing to continue her mother's mission. While Shamblin's movement may have started as a diet craze with heavy biblical overtones, it evolved into a religious cult, one built on guilt, shame, and a relentless pursuit of thinness at any cost. A cult that led to one child's murder and countless cases of abuse. This kind of thing happens repeatedly throughout history, with the weirdest and most vile cults growing out of the church like unwanted nose hairs. The Remnant Fellowship will go on without its founder, continuing to amass members. Have you ever joined or gotten close to joining what turned out to be a bizarre Christian cult? Let me know your experiences in the comments. And hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Hypocrisy in the Vatican. I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, but I have to come out and say it plainly. The Vatican is the gayest place on earth. There, I said it. That's it. According to a shocking new claim, 4 out of 5 priests at the Vatican are homosexuals. The global organization that has made homophobia their favorite pastime is hiding a secret that could destroy them. Titled In the Closet of the Vatican, this 570-page expose comes from French journalist Frédéric Martel, who spent 4 years digging into Vatican life. The book, described by its publisher as a startling account of corruption and hypocrisy, is hitting the shelves in 20 countries and 8 languages pages, right in time for a Vatican conference on abuse. Talk about impeccable timing. The book claims that 80% of priests in the Holy See are gay, and if that's not enough drama, it suggests that some of the loudest voices condemning homosexuality are themselves deep in the closet. But hey, didn't we know that already? If you're curious how Martel gathered his intel, I've got the exclusive scoop. He didn't just sniff around trying to get cozy with some lonely priests. He conducted 1,500 interviews with everyone from cardinals to Swiss guards, seminarians, and priests. One of the most eyebrow-raising claims in Martel's book is that there's an unspoken code in the Vatican. The more a cleric publicly condemns homosexuality, the more likely he is to be gay. Case in point, Cardinal Alfonso Lopez Trujillo of Colombia. He's a staunch opponent of contraception and gay rights, but guess what he was busted doing? Paying male escorts for, well, you know what for. Some priests, according to Martel, fully accept their sexuality and even maintain discreet relationships, while others engage in high-risk encounters or remain in denial. But regardless of their personal choices, this culture of secrecy creates an environment in which abuse and misconduct often go unchallenged. If the Vatican had to update their relationship status, it would probably be, it's complicated. Pope Francis has taken a more progressive stance on LGBTQ+ issues than his 265 predecessors. When asked about gay priests in 2013, he famously responded, "Who am I to judge?" It was a statement that, while revolutionary in Vatican terms, is just common decency. He also reportedly told Chilean abuse survivor Juan Carlos Cruz, "God made you like this and loves you like this." As you can imagine, not everyone in the church is on board with this inclusive tone. In 2015, Polish priest Krzysztof Karamza was fired and defrocked after coming out as gay, later accusing the Vatican of hypocrisy. The fired priest straight up said the Vatican is full of homosexuals, but he was defrocked for being honest about it. And there you have it, my friends. When the Pope erased history. It wasn't long ago that I talked about the phantom time hypothesis. I'm going to get into it again, but I want to investigate it from a different angle. What if the Pope really did invent 300 years of history? The hypothesis claims that Pope Sylvester II and Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, two ridiculously ambitious medieval BFFs, fast-forwarded history by about 300 years to make themselves look more important. These two pulled off the world's biggest fake-it-till-you-make-it ever. I want to dig more into who these guys were rather than what they supposedly did, and I'll start with Otto III. He was a man with a ridiculous amount of power and an even more insane sense of destiny. The Holy Roman Empire was a massive mishmash of what's now Germany, Eastern Europe, Northern Italy, and Eastern France. Otto was put in charge of this vast empire when he was 3 years old. Most toddlers struggle with nap time, but sure, let's give this one an empire. Otto was crowned on Christmas Day, just like Charlemagne, the original Holy Roman Emperor. And because Otto was all about the drama, he saw himself as some kind of messianic figure. He believed that to rule his empire was to fulfill his destiny. Then there was Gerbert of Aurillac, who started from the bottom and rose to the top ranks of the Vatican by being the ultimate nerd. Gerbert was such a nobody that historians don't know who his parents were, but he was also a math genius, an inventor, and eventually the Pope. Gerbert Nobody of Aurillac became Pope Sylvester II by blind luck and perseverance, and with some help from his friend Otto. The year was 999. Otto and Gerbert were on the cusp of ringing in the new millennium. Or were they? Heribert Illich is a German systems analyst who looked at history and said, wait a minute, what if it's all fake? According to Illich, Otto and Sylvester lived in the 7th century, but they thought it would be way cooler if they were the heroes of the year 1000. You have to admit, ruling in the year 1000 is way cooler than the year 700, so they figured they would just change the dates. They invented 300 years of fake history so that they could be the coolest guys in class, and Heribert Illich has the evidence to prove it. Illich claims that some documents from this era show signs of major fraud. There are weird inconsistencies. Plus, Byzantine records from that time were all transcribed into a new script, with the originals conveniently thrown away. Then there's a conundrum with the calendar. When Pope Gregory XIII reformed the Julian calendar in 1582, things were only off by about 10 days, which suggested an era build-up of 1200 years, not 1500. That means about 300 years are missing from the Julian calendar. That's seriously damning proof. Nonetheless, most historians roll their eyes so hard at the mention of this theory that they risk permanent eye damage. The medieval period was chaotic, sure, but tricking an entire continent into thinking they were 300 years ahead of schedule, that's next-level deception. It would be like someone today convincing us that it's actually the year 2300. That said, it's kind of an incredible idea. Two guys rewriting history, bending time, all so they could have their epic moment. Do you kind of wish it was actually the year 1725? Could we all start wearing frilly old-timey clothes and top hats? I hope you had a lot of fun with today's video. Let me know in the comments which revelation you found the most shocking, and remember to subscribe. See you soon!